Thanks, meatbags. My name is Legal Arson. I'm an amateur clown, and today we are going to be getting to our first splatterpunk book, Playground, by Aaron Beauregard, which, if you can remember, was going around TikTok a while ago with people claiming it to be the most disgusting thing that's ever been written, and so I wanted to deep dive into the blood and guts of this book and find out what the actual situation is here and how bad could this book actually be. So if you want to go on this journey with me, feel free to keep watching. Before we get into the book, I think we need to discuss what splatterpunk horror actually is, because I think most people who have attempted to read this book have gone in without the understanding of what it is they're about to be reading. They go in blind, having no idea other than, oh, this book's supposed to be scary and disgusting. Which, yeah, but it's more than that. Splatterpunk is a horror subgenre, as you probably could have fucking guessed, where the whole point of it is to essentially be as disturbing and graphic and gory and disgusting as possible. All forms of horrendous depravity are on the table and vociferously encouraged, which means if you go into these kind of books thinking that it's going to be a light traipse through horror like a fun 80s slasher, you're going to end up either violently disgusted or accidentally traumatizing yourself. I don't recommend these kind of books for light readers at all. In fact, unless you're someone like me who is really desensitized and often goes out of their way to search for extremely graphic content to test its mettle against, I wouldn't recommend these at all. These are the equivalent of a Serbian film in novel form. That is essentially what splatterpunk is. It is extreme horror. I say these things not in an attempt to scare you off, but as a warning to anybody who might be able to handle things like that, so that you can turn back. And we don't shame those who turn back. Knowing your limits is important, and taking care of your mental well-being is both respectful and commendable, and I implore you to do so if you cannot handle extreme topics, as we are going to discuss some terrible things moving forward. This book covers all kinds of hard-to-handle topics: child abuse, graphic and extreme violence, SA, incest, all of the above are in this book, and we're going to be discussing them somewhat candidly. So this is your wee woo, turn on the red lights trigger warning, and final push to click off this video before we get into the book. Thank you for your time, but I would rather you take care of yourself, genuinely. Now then, meatbags and remains, those of you who are still here, let's slide into the depths of Playground, starting off with our cover, like we always do. I really fucking like this cover. It is vicious, to say the least. We've got the little girl standing on the top of the slide, covered in these saw blades, looking down on just this gory pile of mess. There's a disembodied foot, there's some intestines hanging around, you see some swing sets in the background. I'll put it up on the screen like I always do. I really like the font use for the title. It feels very like early educational children's program. Maybe Sesame Street-ish. Maybe more Pajanimals-y than Sesame Street-ish, but I really enjoy it. I like the cover art a lot. I really do. The cover art is part of what, because it's so intense. It's so fascinating. One note that I want to get into really quick, before we get into my breakdown of it and our discussion, is that the book is told through third-person limited point of view, and it switches rather frequently. So don't feel bad if you get lost during this video, because at times it gets very bouncy, and it can be kind of hard to keep up with. Let's everybody take a deep breath, breathe out, and let's get into the playground. A large man named Rock Stanley watches on as a woman named Caroline Clark very angrily pushes her son on a swing while she tries to smoke a cigarette in the rain, which I don't know why you would do that. I've done that before, but even I'm still just like, why did I do that? It doesn't work very well. If your cigarette gets wet or it won't light, it's just not a fun time all around. Anyway, after she purposefully yanks her son off the swing just to scream at him for not holding on, which fuck you for that, Rock winds up holding a brochure for a charity called Helping Hearts that's supposed to help impoverished children get access to better playground equipment. Molly and Tom are two parents getting close to struggling to make ends meet. I did warn you that it was going to be quite bouncy. And it's every chapter is Switch's point of view. When a man offers them $3,000 to have their kids play on Geraldine Borden's brand new playground model, Molly is ecstatic, while Tom, being a bit more of the logical type, is a bit more reserved. Then we meet Greg. Fucking Greg. Greg is an abusive piece of garbage, forcing his kids to do whatever he wants them to because he failed in college. He's so much like my mom's ex-husband, just if he were an alcoholic. His son, Kip, is just trying to keep his head down the way I did in high school. He also has a brother named CJ, I guess. Kip's other brother, Bobby, is really good at skateboarding, but Greg doesn't see it as anything but a waste of time because he fucking sucks. Greg's wife, Lacey, and their daughter Tanya are talking in the kitchen. Tanya really wants to pursue a swimming class, but Lacey thinks that she should just do cheerleading and then marry a handsome man and basically be a good little house slave, like she is, because God forbid a woman have any sort of freedom or ambition. I hate these parents so fucking much. Anyway, of course they can't afford the swimming class anyway. But Tanya tries to bribe her mother with a slap bracelet, which Lacey immediately becomes enamored with, before sending her daughter out to fetch CJ. Here we get our first look at Geraldine through Rock, and she fucking sucks. We find out that she's his adoptive mother, and she's an old, rich piece of garbage. Her right-hand man is this cartoonishly German Nazi scientist named Alfonso Fuchs. His name is Fuchs. And, like, he's so cartoonish. Aaron writes his accent like it's a bad Hitalia fanfic. I know you know what I'm talking about. I don't know why he chose to do that. It's beyond me. All you have to say is like he's got a German accent once. You don't need to write it like that. You didn't need to write the whole book like that, Aaron. But alright. Today's the day. The kids are supposed to come to her playground, and she's upset that there's only 8 of them. She's got this weird obsession with family and lineage. Tom and Molly are driving up to the Borden estate with their 3 kids, Sam, Sadie, and Isaac in the back seat. Sam and Sadie are kind of vicious to their brother Isaac. They beat him up a lot and bully him a lot. And the 2 parents are just trying to get their kids to relax as they approach the gates of the estate. Alright, everybody strap in. This is the part where it starts to get grisly. And I do mean starts. It starts off with a bang. In her room, Geraldine makes Rock take his shirt off, revealing a large branding scar. And he takes a moment to have a flashback to a grisly murder Geraldine had committed and made him clean up. The branding reads the word mine in all caps, I'm assuming. This unfortunately leads into a SA incest scene. I don't know how much I can say on YouTube, so I'm saying as much as I think that I can. This is the part where people generally put down the book. This is the infamous page 42. It's gross and it's uncomfortable, but honestly, this is almost nothing compared to the rest of the book. Also, Aaron's word choices are really funny, and it almost takes all of the seriousness out of the scene for me. Moldy mound, feminine snake bite. Aaron, buddy, for the love of God, just say vagina. It's fine. You don't. What are these euphemisms? They're so bad, so bad. Geraldine has a self-obsessed kink, which is a lot. Then she facilitates by using this giant room filled with mirrors that she just places adult toys on and uses them while looking at herself, which compared to the chapter before this and the chapter after this is so fine. Like, that's almost normal. Okay, maybe not having like a whole mirror maze for her, but like she's an old rich crazy lady. And I'm only mentioning this part because it comes back later. This book is kind of exhausting. The whole rest of this chapter is just ugh. Geraldine gets herself off while thinking about her incestuous lust over her mom and her mom's death, which led to her wanting children to chase that high, which is so horrible. Even leading, this is what eventually leads to the playground existing. What a horrible day to have eyes. I wish that I could unread this incest scat scene. I don't think it's scary. And if it's supposed to like gross out the audience, it kind of feels like low hanging fruit almost. It doesn't mean that I wanted to read it though. I mean, I guess I did. I bought the book, but like, I don't know. I don't know why. Eating poop's not scary. I'm saying that eating poop's not scary. It's a little gross. It's very unsanitary, but it's not scary. No, that's my stance on it. Greg and his family are waiting for Geraldine in front of the estate. He laments on his college football failures. What a loser. He thinks his kids are only good for making him money, and then uses the F slur when thinking about CJ. I wish I could dropkick this guy into the moon. Lacey sucks equally as much, thinking Tanya is only capable of being a cheerleader to get a husband, which is garbage. But they both suck so much. They are both garbage people. Tom and Molly show up with their kids, and Rock Fox and Geraldine come out to greet them. Greg and Lacey are, of course, immediately hostile. However, Geraldine maintains her composure, and eventually all the parents agree to the vow of secrecy she's forcing them in. Geraldine and her posse lead the group of parents and children through her escape? I wish. Through her estate to the back, where there's such a giant, pristine playground. Isaac is a little disappointed that it's just like a regular playground, just bigger and nicer. Which Bobby immediately picks him out as a target to bully because children suck. But all the other kids are excited to go and play. Greg, of course, just sees the whole thing as a competition because he's a crazy person. In this competitive nature, Greg tries to pick a fight with Tom when Tom's just displaying genuine concern for his children's well-being because, of course, he does. But after Rock steps in between them, Geraldine reassures Tom, and the kids finally go in and begin exploring the playground. Geraldine then leads the parents to a theater room where they all take their seats to monitor their children. However, when the old bat begins to give them a meditation instructions as a distraction, Lacey can't help herself in playing with her slap bracelet. She drops it and leans forward to pick it up, which costs her life. As metal colors overtake the necks of the others, it completely destroys Lacey's, almost decapitating her. And it is crunchy. The adults are suddenly made aware of how serious this situation actually is. Rock watches the kids play and begins to make himself furious with rage, thinking about everything, every opportunity to be a normal person. Every opportunity to be a normal person was viciously torn away from him. Caroline and Donnie show up at the door, and seeing Donnie on a child leash combined with Caroline's attitude was enough to push Rock over the edge into the rage that he was already building up within himself, and he beats her to death, smashing her skull open like a pumpkin 3 weeks after Halloween. Well, Donnie just stands there and watches wordlessly. Geraldine informs all the surviving parents that this isn't the real playground and explains to them about the button on their collars. Essentially, they all have one chance to talk to their kids for a few seconds, and therefore have to time that very carefully. She then, after goading Molly a bit, decides that should one of the children actually survive the playground, she might take them under her wing. Because she's a crazy old bat. Rock takes Donnie into a room to clean up his wounds while he wrestles with his emotions. But on discovering the fact that Donnie has been abused for some time, he finds that his armpits are severely scarred with cigarette burns. He decides sending Donnie into the playground is probably for the best. Which I don't know that I agree with. Isaac tries to avoid Bobby and Kip's assaults by climbing up a rope tower, but they follow and continue berating him, and he ends up falling and losing his glasses. CJ helps him find them, and then they start being ordered by Fox to get to the huge slide that's at the back of the playground. This huge metal thing that curls into the ground that seemingly has no end. The kids start making their way back. Donnie is released into the playground, followed shortly by a bunch of vicious Dobermans. They start running and trying to attack the children. They injure Isaac, batting him hard on the arm and taking a chunk of skin with it. And CJ goes in to save him, and then they're all on an elevator, essentially leading up to the opening of the slide. CJ takes charge of the group, forcing Kip to give up his undershirt to make a tourniquet for Isaac's arm before the middle elevator begins like closing in on them from all sides, forcing them to go down the slide. We then get a chapter about Geraldine meeting Fox for the first time. It's pretty boring, to be honest, and not terribly pertinent to the plot. The only really important thing to note here is that Fox is the one who physically helped build and design the playground, and also he's a Nazi, which we already knew. It's just reiterating Fox being a Nazi, and I don't really know why we needed this chapter. The book would have flowed exactly the same without it. Back on the slide, the children discovered that the thing has been lined with razor blades that slice them all the way up on their way down the tube. The bottom of the slide also has a mess of barbed wire that most of the kids can fit under, but Bobby gets his arm, like, completely fucked up by it. Once they're at the bottom, the floor is covered in marbles, and balls start being shot at them out of these high-pressure cannons from seemingly all directions. The kids bend down and make their way underneath the balls, luckily, before coming across a game of hangman in the center of this large ball pit. Unhappy with their circumstances, Sam tries to follow an exit sign, and Sadie follows her. But Sam gets her leg blown off by a bomb that goes off. And then the ceiling starts just coming down on her. And Isaac and CJ rush in and try to save her, try to carry her out before the ceiling completely smashes her, but they fail to save her, and she gets crushed to death in vivid detail. And of course, Geraldine and Fox celebrate the girl's death with champagne, because of course they do. Sonia figures out that the hangman's riddle says stab him in the head, so CJ crosses the dangerous path to bring down the hangman. He falls into the ball pit on his way over there, which causes him to literally rub salt in his wound because all the balls are filled with salt. He then makes his way back up and throws the doll-like thing to his sister. Tom and Molly are completely devastated by losing their daughter, and Greg's competitive side returns for some fucking reason. I hate this guy. I hate him so much. I hate Greg. Sadie stabs open the hangman's head, which releases a giant wave of fire ants, but also a small baggie with a key and a piece of paper inside. Following the instructions, they use the key to open up what is essentially the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 vents and begin to crawl into the next room. The camera in the theater room malfunctions, so Rock leaves to tell Geraldine and Fox, and Tim and Molly discuss trying to use Rock to get out. You know, they're trying to come up with a plan for how to save themselves, how to save their kids, and trying to convince Greg to help them, but Greg only cares about his kids winning for some dumb fuck reason. Every time that we have to see him in this book, I hate him more. Every single time. Geraldine throws a glass of champagne at Rock's face, which cuts him all the fuck up, obviously, but he doesn't really care about it. The next game the kids have to play is hopscotch, except that on each side of the board there are two of these massive meat grinders with tubes leaning down to spray the board, and above each meat grinder is two live cows. Molly and Tom try to talk to Rock again, who lashes out at them when they tell him that he doesn't have to be like Geraldine. Geraldine begins to root for Tanya to make it all the way through so she can basically turn her into mini Geraldine. Because of course she does. The kids begin to cross the hopscotch, but when the cow guts start spraying all over the board, Kip slips and falls into the meat grinder. Bobby gets covered in the gory remains of his brother, and he then breaks Isaac's nose for no real reason. He's basically of Mini Greg at this point, so I don't care about Bobby. Bobby sucks. The next puzzle involves Isaac and Sadie going on this giant swing set, and the others going on a set of spring riders. As the spring riders move back and forth, they move the platform that they're on to the other side of the room. However, they have to time it just right because there are also these giant slicing pendulums set at intervals. Also, Bobby steals a knife from the hangman trap while CJ while they're avoiding being sliced open. So now Bobby has a knife, which I think we can all agree is not great. As the others navigate the spring riders, the floor begins to open up beneath Isaac, and Sadie in flames begin to look at them from below. They begin frantically swaying as the flames climb higher and higher. Isaac makes the jump to the landing platform successfully, and then Sadie jumps, landing on her brother. The others successfully dismount from the spring riders. We check in with the parents. In the next chapter, Greg still sucks and is still delusional. The next trap is a ginormous set of monkey bars over a massive pit of broken glass. Presumably venomous. He calls them poisonous, which is really fucking funny. Snakes. Molly uses her button press to warn the kids that the bars are greased and to go over top of them instead of trying to cross them the normal way, which makes Geraldine very angry. However, she turns her attention to Tanya again and plays with herself like a fucking weirdo. The children make it across the monkey bars and down the slide into the next area without sustaining further injury. Rock had in fact told Tom and Molly that the bars were greased. He's still got a lot of inner turmoil going on, and that's what happens in that chapter. The next trap is another slide, but there are 3 rows of bombing saws at the end of the slide that they have to carefully time themselves to make it over safely. Isaac uses his shoe as a test subject for how to time the saws correctly before determining when they should push off. Isaac, Donnie, and Tanya make it down safely. CJ makes it down safely. Sadie freezes with fear. And after being goaded by Greg, fuck Greg, all my homies hate Greg, Bobby uses the knife he stole from CJ to stab Sadie over and over and over again in the back, literally. Bobby then uses Sadie as a human skateboard and rides her body over the saws, bashing her body into a mess of human vomit, as Aaron so eloquently writes. It is a brutal scene. The art that goes along with that chapter is very fun. Oh yeah, there's art that goes along with some of these. Tom and Molly are completely devastated. Geraldine is beyond delighted, of course. Rock feels frustrated and disgusted, asking himself where the line is, which, buddy, I think the line was at the beginning of the book. I think the line was crossed from the first page. This has been Bobby, like, if he was off the handle before, he's like doing acrobatic fucking pirouettes off the handle now. It starts using the knife to threaten everybody and boss everybody around. Eventually they move on to the next trap. It's a playground merry-go-round. It's old and rickety, and the merry-go-round is surrounded by a moat of toxic green bubbling chemicals of some sort. Losing whatever tiny bit of marbles he has left, Bobby ends up stabbing Isaac when he begins to slip and intending on sending him into the chemicals below, but Isaac reaches up and hangs on to Bobby with all of his strength and says, "Bitch, if I'm going down, you're going down with me, because fuck you." And then they fall into the chemicals and their bodies melt together really quickly. Like, it was brutal. Tom and Marley are beyond devastated at this point, and Rock feels completely sickened and angry. The three survivors make their way to the next trap, the seesaw, ironically, as that was the one thing that CJ and Tanya had been looking forward to doing together before they had entered the actual playground. CJ has Donnie sit in a corner of the small room while he and Tanya begin their ascent and descent, trying to avoid massive spinning blades while still gathering the necessary points to be able to move on. However, once they pass 5, a grate opens up beneath both of them, and fire once again begins to eat at their legs. Once they finally reach 10, CJ passes out, and because of the difference of weight now, goes hurling up towards the propeller and dies. Tanya and Donnie limp their way to the next trap. It's a jungle gym with spears shooting out in random directions at random intervals, with seemingly no way to beat it. Donnie volunteers to go up and ring the bell at the top of the structure. Tanya asks if he can write. Why can't he talk to them? And he reveals that his tongue has been almost completely cut out of his mouth, most likely by his mother, since we've already seen her piece of behavior. Right when Donnie is about to ascend the structure, Rock steps in to free them. Molly and Tom are overjoyed by Rock's change in personality finally. A furious Geraldine and Fox enter the room. Fox shoots Rock in the arm, but Rock just snaps his arm in turn and then uses his head to push the buttons to free the parents, mashing it into the electrical boards, thus electrocuting the Nazi. Good for him. Greg tries to fight Tom, but Rock uses his big fist to just Greg's head open. Kind of metal. Molly patches up Rock's gun wounds. And then Rock finally gets his revenge on Geraldine. It is a long, satisfying scene of him absolutely battering her body around the mirrored room. It also gives us one of the worst and also funniest lines of this book when Rock says, I believe, I've got to read this to you because it's so funny, but I'm your mother, she cried, and I'm a motherfucker. Rock rumbled. Yeah, I'm a motherfucker. It is legendarily terrible. That is, I can't believe he wrote that. I can't believe that line got published. It's so funny. Oh man. Rock, Rock leads, Rock leads the parents down to the kids to rescue them. Molly tries to get him to live with them and let her take care of him and take him to the hospital, but he refuses and instead goes to play on the fake playground outside and plays on the equipment until he bleeds to death on the merry-go-round. And that is where this absolute trial of a book ends, honestly. This book stressed me out as I was reading it to no end. Between Geraldine and Greg, I just found myself more and more annoyed as the book went on, which I'll admit made the ending that much more satisfying, so kudos for that. I really enjoyed the chapters that just focus on the kids and the playground itself. I think that's where this book really shines. I don't know why Flex was even in this book. Really, he was kind of a nothing character. There are parts of this book that I don't necessarily enjoy. I'm very obviously queer and neurodivergent. I don't feel great about the slurs Greg uses here. Is it within his character? Yeah. Do they serve to reinforce the kind of terrible person that he is? Yeah. I don't really think that they're necessary, though. Do I find this book scary and short? No, not at all. I I think it relies too hard on trying to gross the reader out for it to be scary to me. There are parts of this book where I laughed out loud because of the cartoonish word choices. However, having read some of Aaron's other works, I think that maybe this is his best and most approachable book. I do plan on covering at least 2 more of his books in the future on this channel, and I'm not going to spoil which ones. But the body horror for me, but the body horror, at least for me, is very toned back here. He did dial back the gore. He didn't go as hard as he could have. However, that doesn't mean that the gore is not harsh and violent. It is very harsh and fairly violent, but for me, I find it to be very digestible and kind of fun. When I talk about this book with my friends and partners, I compare it to Saw a lot. If you like those movies, you would probably enjoy this book. Well, enjoy minus all the weird incest stuff, which I didn't describe in detail here because I don't really care enough to. But it's absolutely explored in detail in the book. I don't think that it's too much or crosses the line or anything. It's a splatterpunk book. That's kind of the point of it, to spit in the eye of what's socially acceptable for a novel. If you can't handle things like that, maybe don't read splatterpunk books or be more selective in your particular book choices. Especially this, since this is probably the tamest book that Aaron has written, if the slob is any indicator of his usual fare. Regardless, this was a book and I read it. I don't think there's any particular takeaway from this other than Splatterpunk is super fun, at least to me. I definitely plan on covering more Splatterpunk books in the future. But moving on, in the next video, we'll be diving back into Fazbear Frights with 1:35 a.m. So look forward to that. Once I'm finished with the Fazbear Frights that I have here, I might go back to posting creepypasta videos on this week's until I get more of the books, but we'll see. The next 2 books we'll be looking at are much lighter in tone. I'm going to be breaking up these really, really heavy books for both myself and my audience. I just think it'd be better that way. So the next 2 books we'll be covering are The Thief of Always by Clive Barker and the first of the original Monster High novel series, because I don't know why nobody has ever bothered to talk about these. But I think that they're great. I think that they're campy and fun, and I want to talk about them. So we're going to talk about them. Anyway, I feel like that I've been working on this video for 18 million years, and I'm glad to be getting it out there. Let me know what you all think about Playing Around in the comments. Have you read it? Do you intend on reading it? What do you think? What do you think? I want to know. I love you, meatbags. Stay spooky, stay in trouble, and I'll see you in the next one.